Hey, soulful sister. Today's episode is part one of my inspiring and healing chat with Tiffany Papageorge about grief. And I do want to say at the outset that we are talking about grief in its many forms. At the time of recording this, I have recently lost my mother, but grief isn't just about death. It is, in fact, an experience of loss. So that loss could be a change of life in some way, a change of job, your changing body, your changing health, perhaps a divorce or separation. And menopause, of course, is a big change of life as we transition from one way of being to another, and it definitely involves some grief. Any experience of letting go that you may be going through right now is a grief. Now, my chat with Tiffany was so beautiful and soulful that we got completely lost in time. And before we knew it, 2 hours had flown past. So that's why I've split it into two parts so that it's a lot more digestible for you. But as I say at the end, I really want to make sure that you don't just listen to this and forget about it. I want this episode to enhance your life. So now here's a little bit about Tiffany. Tiffany is a certified grief and loss specialist. She's also a Jungian Creative Depth Coach, a Trained Labyrinth Facilitator, and a certified yoga teacher. She uses her profound understanding and love of stories and creativity in her work with people of all ages through workshops, individual coaching, retreats, and public speaking. Tiffany's children's book, My Yellow Balloon, is a comforting guide to children who are navigating the complicated emotions of grief. And adults love this book as well. It has sold over 40,000 copies. It's won 6 awards, including the prestigious Mum's Choice Gold Award. And it was chosen out of 30,000 books to be on the Lucy Culkin's Teacher Classroom Library list. Also, the Spanish translation, Mi Globo Amarillo, sorry for the pronunciation there, but that was released in 2018. So without further ado, let's get moving on with our beautiful chat. Welcome to the Soulful Menopause Podcast. Discover how to transform the chaos of menopause into vibrant health and a soulful life you'll love. I'm Sally Love, natural nutritionist, hypnotherapist, and soul wisdom coach. I want you to experience a soulful menopause that will guide you into the best years of your life. Oh, well, welcome, Tiffany. I am so thrilled that you're here with me so that we can have a chat about grief in all its forms, really. And I know that this is going to be hugely valuable to everyone listening. And I really wanted to bring it up right now because I've just lost my mother, as you know, and just had her funeral this week. And oh, that makes me go in goosebumps just saying it. But yeah, and I just felt so strongly that you have so much wisdom and healing to share around this topic of grief that I'm really thrilled that you've been able to create the time to be here.
Of course, Sally, and I'm so sorry about your mom. There's nothing like losing a mom.
Yeah.
So I just want you to know that, I think when we lose someone that is that close to us, we are entering a time, and you are entering a time. And even though the funeral's over, and it's happened already, the ancient cultures around the world say that you are now in the very beginning of the year of holiness. So this year is a year where someone that close to you is on the other side, and a part of you is there with her, and a part of her is here with you. And so just be really gentle and tender with yourself this year, as you walk through this time.
Mm,
It's sacred.
mm,
It's very
mm.
sacred time.
Thank you. It does, it does feel very profound because I did lose my father in 2013. So there's quite a few things mixed up with that. It's sort of now I don't have any parents anymore, which is a really weird thing to grapple with. Um, I it really sort of like struck me that when somebody is going through grief, particularly in menopause, it can really hit women a lot stronger than it may do at other times. And this is due to so many things that we can always, of course, talk about. But on a very sort of like biological level, it's a very stressful time. And the adrenals in menopause are already working overtime, already feeling like, oh my word, I've got too much to deal with because they're taking over production of some hormones that were originally done by the ovaries, etc. So they're already under a huge amount of stress and pressure, and then you add on grief on top, and that's where anxiety, depression, and a huge amount of extra stress can really affect us a lot more deeply during this time.
Absolutely. And I want to add that whenever we are in a grief experience, a loss experience, so I always equate, there's something that happens, and it's a loss, and then we grieve what we have lost. So it's a kind of a rippling chain of events with the feelings within us. Um, But whenever you are experiencing a loss, and a loss, by the way, can be a disappointment. So just think of all the
Mhm,
disappointments. If you think of just menopause, we're not even thinking about the death of your mother, but the a disappointment is a loss, a transition is a loss, and a change is a loss. So
mhm,
any change, any transition, any disappointment is a loss experience. When we have a loss experience, and then another one comes along and another one comes along. So we might be having loss experiences within our own body, within our own life, and where we're at in our life. Maybe you have kids that have grown up, and that's a loss experience in a way, even though they're still with us, but they're different. It's different. So when these things add up, whether it's in our body or in our life or in our situation, and right now in the world, there's a lot of disappointment and a lot of change and a lot of transition.
mhm,
Each one of those magnifies the next thing anyway. So,
mm,
yes, if you have the adrenals and the bodily functions of menopause and the physiological impact of those changes, that also impact our feelings around loss and grief. All situations are then magnifying one after the other. So, whatever's going on in your life where you're disappointed or you're going through a change or transition in other ways is going to magnify also.
absolutely. So going through the stages of menopause, entering this journey of menopause, which can really last quite a long time, for some women 20 years or so. That's a huge change because we are moving from one cycle of life to another, aren't we, during that time? And there are all of these different cycles that can come up into our lives and challenge us, and even ones that we might not even be aware of that are challenging us as well. For example, like we say that you're changing body, we might just look in the mirror and go, oh, what's happening to my young, vibrant, firm body, and we might just sort of like feel that we're just a little bit pissed off with the way it is at the moment. But and we just look in the mirror and walk on and get on with our lives. But actually, if we stop to really feel into our bodies and how that is affecting us, you know, there is some grief around that, isn't there? That these things that we don't even really register as grief in our lives, I think.
That's the thing about grief is that we are in an overculture that doesn't really look at loss or grief and doesn't want to. And so they may prey on it to sell products, um, but it's not appropriate to talk about it or feel it in so many ways in our culture. And I really am on a mission to change that. Um, so yes, when we look at ourselves, and maybe it is the loss of, I don't know. There's so many things when you look at your aging body that just isn't the same. And it's a change. And whether we can look at it and love it and say, okay, well, this is where I'm at now, it kind of creeps up on you, doesn't it, Sally?
Mhm.
Like it kind of like, I don't know, I just even noticed in my 50s that it's just way different than in my 40s that it just crept up on me. Like, how did I get here? Um, but it is something where, you put on a piece of clothing and it's disappointing. It doesn't fit you the way you think in your mind it's going to fit you.
Mhm.
And so it's a disappointment and it's a loss. And also just the idea of like I was at something for my daughter the other day, and a mother said, "Oh, look at them. They have their whole life ahead of them." And although she was saying it like with love, I could see like I wanted to ask her, "Well, does that mean that your life is n not ahead of you?"
Mhm.
Um, because it was said with a lot of almost sadness
Mhm.
um, for self. So
Mhm.
we can be happy for them, but we can be sad for self. And I think um, it is loss, and we need to be gentle with ourselves around it and understand that, yeah, there is a period of our life that is now over. It doesn't mean our life is over, but there is a period of our life that is over. And so the maidenhood is over, and that's a transition and a change, and that's a loss. The motherhood is over, and that's a change and a loss. We're not at the age where we can have babies now. Um, and we're moving into the crone stage, and that has we have feelings around that,
Mhm. Mhm.
you know? And
Which is
and
why I
our
called it the sage woman's destiny,
yes,
because I think Crone has such this terrible image of this weathered up, withered old woman, you know, with a hunchback and like a cackly laugh and warts all over her face or whatever. You know, like
yes.
once you reach 50 or 60, you're doomed.
And it's so sad because the word actually means crown.
Oh, yeah.
It
Yeah.
actually means crown.
Yeah.
And I agree because it does. It connotates all these different images, and the archetype of the crone is I don't know. It's one thing to see it on someone else, but it's another thing to say, "Oh my gosh, that's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not there. I don't want to be there." Um, so I do love the image of the sage woman because it is a time of wearing our wisdom,
Hmm.
stepping into our wisdom and our knowing and our deep self. Our deep self is there.
It's like we have
So
space to listen to our souls and to really feel into that, because we have that wisdom, because we have those years on this planet, and all that gained wisdom that we're sitting with, and we it's it's almost like we sort of feel like, okay, well, let me put it this way. I saw something, I think it was on Facebook or something yesterday or today, and this woman was being interviewed. She was in her 50s and she was saying, you know what? This is my happiest time of life because I don't care what other people think like I used to. I get so much more of a sense of freedom. I'm not worrying about this, that, or the other, and as much. It's like there's this sort of like this softening and this acceptance, I suppose, of life, being able to surrender to life, to let it unfold, because we're a lot more in touch at that point with who we are. We spent all of those years trying to find out who we are, and usually we start off when we're teenagers putting our identities towards movie stars or pop stars or whatever. And so it does take a while to really sort of come into that awareness of who we are. And as I teach during my soulful menopause journey, there's that whole journey of letting go of all of those old aspects that no longer serve us, so we can step into sage woman, that wisdom and that more sense of connectedness. So yeah, and I think also with regard to the crone image is that us women now are living longer. I do remember looking at my grandmother when she was probably about my age, and she died in her 60s, I think, but she was immediately old. It's interesting, isn't it? Sort of like the group consciousness of
Mhm.
age and how that's changing now, and as a result, how we are living longer now as well. So, that was part of bringing in the sage woman, because we are looking at being at this stage of our lives as being actually not the end, but actually an amazing start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're speaking to something that is we don't really we don't really think about. So let me just preface this with the beginning of our life and the end of our life are two major loss experiences. And you don't think about birth that way, but when you're born, you leave your mother's womb and it's the only world that you know. And we don't know where we're going. And we're born into this world and it's too dry and it's too bright and it's too loud and it's too intense. And I think about that as a baby, if I just put myself back there, what that would be like. Um, Everything from, oh my gosh, what is this thing that I'm doing? I'm breathing on my own, and what is this? And why am I hungry? And like all of it. It's so shocking, I'm sure. And so our first experience is loss. Our first experience is change.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we do that again, as your mother has just done that. And we leave this world, which is the only world we know, and we're going where we go. And so all of the losses, all of the disappointments, changes, transitions through that lifetime are all loss experiences. And what has hit me about it is that, and I'm a big fan of learning through nature, that the seasons teach us the way.
Mm-hmm.
And the day teaches us the way. Like, the sun came up this morning and it gave us this brand new day. And then the sun goes down at night and we lose this day.
Mm-hmm.
And, spring turns into summer, turns into fall, turns into winter. And it teaches us that something ends and something begins right on the same moment.
Mm-hmm.
We lose our mother's womb, but we're born right on the same moment into this world. So think of it this way, that every loss experience is an ending, but it's also the grief that you feel is the gate to the new,
Mm.
whatever that is.
It's
It's the
cyclical,
gate.
isn't it?
It is.
Mm.
It is. So if we're talking about this time of our life and everything is more poignant and we feel everything very deeply and we're incredibly intuitive, all the things that come with this stage in our life, I liken it to the fall. I liken it to the reds and the mahoganies and the colors that come out on the leaves. And that's where we are. We are in our full color
Mm.
right now.
Mm.
And we are letting go, just as the fall lets go of what doesn't serve us, what has served its purpose, what has come. That's where we're at.
Mm.
And so it is, and things are being lost, I think that getting older to me is not, it's not so bad. What's the hardest thing is the grief that comes with it.
Mm.
There's a
Mm.
lot of things that change now.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway, I think that's really important, that to look at it like all endings are also beginnings, and we cannot emotionally bypass, which is what we like to do, to go to the beginning. We have to feel our way through the whole thing, which you teach so beautifully in Soulful Menopause, of really coming to terms by going through the process, and really gleaning what we have learned in our wisdom and our gems and our jewels of wisdom. But you're going through process. We're going somewhere. Something is beginning and something is ending.
Mm. That's beautiful. And also, what strikes me is when we talk about grief, no matter really, I don't think what type of grief someone is experiencing, is that there are additional things loaded into that.
Yeah,
So there may be relationship issues. There may be things like, if you think about somebody who has passed, were there issues in that relationship? Were there things that went unsaid? What are the karmic patterns? What also comes up with the grief of, as we've talked about, moving into menopause and saying goodbye to our children as they flee the nest and things like this. So I'd love it if you could speak a little bit maybe on grief, in that it's not just grief, is it? There's a huge amount connected to it.
that's right. That's right. And everything kind of plays on each other. I remember for myself, as an example, my son was going away to college, and in e- 2 days before we were to drive him to college, my father died. And it was such a back-to-back moment of, I mean, it was loss on both ends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we also grieve, you can have compounded grief, which is what I was going through, where one grief and another grief, that's compounded grief. And you're sorting through these two losses, these two big griefs, or maybe more. um, right now is the time that we are looking at. There's so many things, like here in the US, there's like, the grief of job loss, or, maybe even like the end of a career, or, then you've got maybe in your family someone's health so you've got like these griefs that are just compounding and compounding. Then we have anticipatory grief. Oh my gosh, they're sick and I know it's coming, but when is it coming? Um, we have, by the way, I think as a collective, unconscious, and maybe even conscious now, the environment, there's environmental grief.
Yeah.
And that's something that even our children are feeling on all kinds of levels. Um, and that's a environmental grief is often a very anticipatory grief.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so these things are in a way, we're kind of constantly grieving something, and it's under the surface, and we don't know what those feelings are. And so, do you know how they come out is through our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are feeling these feelings and we don't really know how to name them or describe them, um, I always say behavior is what happens when our feelings are too big to know what to do with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so whether it's ourselves or our family members or our partners or our kids or, the lady at the grocery store, it doesn't matter. The When we see somebody behave in a way that is, um, not copacetic, we judge behavior. But really, that behavior is like something just coming out of us because we don't know. It has nothing to do sometimes with what's coming out. It's all the stuff inside that we're not processing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really important that whatever you have going on internally, that the first step is acknowledging it and naming it and bringing it to the foreground and saying, yeah, I have, you know, um, maybe I have feelings around, someone who just died, that maybe there's feelings that were not processed at the time when they were here, you
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
know? And so now I have all this stuff inside of me. And so you go through the process, you go through the funeral, you go through all of that, but it's still there in you. And it's still like gnawing at you, but you stuff it down and you pretend it's not there. But I have taught me this beautiful saying of, what we resist persists. And
Absolutely.
so, right? That's a Sallyism. So, and it's brilliant because it's true and it does. And so it's almost like it finds its way out one way or another. And it's better if we can um, find a person, a grief coach, a menopausal coach. You need a person that can walk you through process and guide you so that you can process these things, metabolize these things, and allow them to, um, you know, to find where they fit in your life
Mm-hmm.
in a way that's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So, my favorite thing to do when I see somebody in my family or my loved ones, um, first after my ego kind of calms down when they do something like, shout or act with behavior that is inappropriate, is when I can remember myself and come back to myself to just look at them, really look at them with soft eyes and say, okay, what are you feeling right now? What is that feeling? Because chances are it is all this undealt with, unprocessed stuff, you know? Um, and then we can get to the heart of it because
That's
it's
beautiful.
always,
That's really powerful, isn't it? Just
it
just
is.
asking that. And
It
sometimes it
is.
takes a huge amount of presence and emotional maturity to be able to not be triggered by somebody else in a situation like that and to remain calm, to ask that question, and then for you not to also start making their answer something that could be personal towards you or something that you also might start reacting to as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because that doesn't help anybody. But
yeah.
I just want to put this in a context. So let's just say hypothetically that I, tell my child to clean their room a million times and they don't do it and they ignore you. And so you say it nice and you say it mad and you say it frustrated and you say it really sweet and you say it with bribery and you say it over a certain amount of time. And then at some point, you just lose it.
Mm.
And what you're really feeling is disrespected, angry, frustrated, hurt, um, ignored, unseen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, there's a bigger story now. There's a bigger story within you, you know, um, about your own worth,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
around why am I not seen and heard and respected? Why am I not understood that this really means something? Why can't I be heard? It's like, am I not here? There's all this other stuff now that's happening. So you freak out and scream and yell and go psycho because you're just, it's all these feelings. It's boom, boom, there it comes, right?
Yep.
Now, no child of mine has ever said to me, "Wow, mom, what are you feeling right now?" Okay? Like that just doesn't happen. Okay. But let's just imagine and go to an imaginary place where that could happen. All of a sudden, and I say this for us to just be able to imagine it for ourselves. Imagine them saying that, and you say, or your spouse or your partner saying, "Wow, what are you feeling right now?" All of a sudden, that rage, where does it go? It's like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm feeling angry and I'm feeling hurt and I'm feeling unheard and I'm feeling unseen and I'm feeling not respected in this house and I'm feeling all of a sudden all these feelings come up, which are informing us. What they're there for is to inform us of where we're at. Then all of a sudden, wow, yeah, this is how I'm feeling, and I can acknowledge it, and you can hear it, and you can acknowledge it.
Mm-hmm.
And when those feelings come up, the only thing we need to do is say, wow, I acknowledge that's how I'm feeling. I acknowledge that's how you're feeling. We don't have to fix it. We don't have to take responsibility for it. We just need to acknowledge it.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
So then we have, okay, that's that is the first step in any healing process, is to acknowledge it.
Mm,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
And I
so
love journaling, as you know. I love,
journaling is
yeah, because
Mhm.
we don't actually have to get to that point to burst out in anger, do we? If we're journaling, we can even ask ourselves that question in our journal and then just write.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like, oh, wow, you're writing and you're thinking, wow, I didn't realize I felt like that.
Yes.
Surprise yourself.
So journaling is brilliant. I am a huge proponent of journaling. If you look up the benefits of journaling online, you will find pages and pages of benefits. Um, and I look at it like mini earthquakes. Okay. Like I live in California, and when there is a small earthquake and nobody feels it, it's great because, Mother Earth is just like letting off a little steam. And I know what that's like. So you just if you let it off in small doses, it doesn't become the big earthquake. And that's really important. And also you've led me to the second step of grief, is the first one is acknowledgement. The second one is expression. Because why? Because we have to get the feelings from the inside to the outside. And journaling is brilliant for this. Letting the feelings flow. And by the way, feelings are like clouds in the sky. You might feel this thing right now and it's so intense and so much. And in an hour it's lost its steam. It's come and it's gone. So feelings are not permanent. And that's important to remember because we get scared of feelings like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel that. Oh my gosh, I don't want to get lost in that. You won't. You won't. Even if you are in the most intense grief of your life and the pain is so intense and you are jaggedly feeling it and crying, it cannot last more than 90 seconds.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if you let it go through you, it goes through you. And it's, I've heard grief is like a wave. It comes and it does. It comes and it goes out again. But you just let it. Don't fight it. The more you fight it, the worse it is.
Yeah, and I love, excuse me, my voice is a bit a bit groggy at the moment because I didn't sleep for a long time, which is another part of grief. But I love what you're saying with regard to emotions and moving through you, and I love the way to experience that as it as in energy and emotion. So emotion is energy in motion, and it
Absolutely.
does flow through us. We can hold on to it though, can't we?
Yeah, this is the thing. When you hold on to it, um, and we've all been there. We've all done that. It can really make you sick.
Hmm.
It's not meant to be held on to. And some people that are grieving someone that matters so deeply to them, there's a part of them that doesn't want to let it go. Because if they let it go, then that means that it didn't, maybe they don't care as much. Um, and I just want to, for any of, our circle that's here with us on this podcast that's listening to this, I just want you to know that the love that you hold on to, that's a part of you when you lose somebody that doesn't go away, by the way, um, the love that you feel for them, it doesn't it doesn't display or make it that you love them. If you hold on to the grief and you hold on to these really intense emotions, it doesn't mean that you're holding on to the love. You're holding on to the intense emotions.
Hmm.
And the love is the part you want to hold on to.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we can also deal with conflicting emotions during grief, can't we? Like you could
Yeah.
start laughing at something and then feel really guilty that you're laughing because you're supposed to be grieving and this awful thing just happened. Why are you
No,
laughing? That's awful of you. You must be a horrible person to be laughing right now. All sorts of conflicting emotions and thoughts go on.
you know, one time when in my book, My Yellow Balloon, I read it at a middle school once, and this boy came up to me after the assembly. He was probably about 14. And the principal asked me later what he asked me. And I said, well, it was really interesting. He didn't ask me anything. He came up to me and he said, I really like your book. And I said, oh, good. I'm really glad you liked it. Um, and he says, yeah, I really liked it. It says it's okay to be sad. And I said, yes, it is okay to be sad for sure. And he says, yeah, but I really like it because it says that it's okay to be happy too. And I had never I had never thought of that. So, My Yellow Balloon, um, you know, I wrote it originally when I was around 14 years old. And so I didn't, these things weren't consciously put in there. But when the principal told me that he had lost his sister 2 years before that, and it just all made sense because it was so profound to him that it's okay to be happy too. And I think that is really important to know that, again, feelings and emotions, they come. They're not good, they're not bad, they just are. And if you feel a moment of something funny, it's funny and it's okay. It doesn't take anything away from the fact that you're grieving or that you are missing someone or that you are grieving a time of your life or something that a dream. We grieve dreams that we had. Whatever it is that you're feeling, it's okay. Both can live in the same house. All of it can live in the same house. And, there was a little girl in elementary school, and we asked them to color a balloon with the color that equated to what they were feeling right then. And all of them were like one color: red, blue, yellow, orange, purple. Hers was a bunch of just, it almost made a brown color. She just colored all these colors on top of each other and then had her key. And she says, I feel all these things. And it's a big mix up of colors. And I said, yeah, because that's really how it is. And it was so profound because she was only in first grade. And it was really, wow, she got
Yeah.
that, you know? So I think it is important to know that feelings are just what you said. That they can be complicated, but it's only because a lot of times we make them complicated out of guilt. And by the way, we're the only animal on the planet that knows what guilt is. Um, it is something that is a human thing that we have invented, and it's really unuseful and really damaging. Um, and so, you can journal um, your feelings around these things. And when you do, it's important to let the journal hold the feelings. So some people journal it and that makes you feel a little better. But what I do, and it takes it a step further, is I just thank the journal when I close it. Thank you for holding all this so I can let it go.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I know you're holding it, so I don't need to.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah,
That's
it's,
just having that statement is a letting go in itself.
yeah,
Saying that. Yeah.
yeah. And knowing that I'll pick it up again. I can pick it up at any point,
Mm-hmm.
but right now I can let it go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. So I want to talk more about your yellow balloon, your book, My Yellow Balloon. But before we do, I just want to continue on with, you've talked about the steps of
Yes.
with it. So the first of all, it's to acknowledge. The second one is expression. Is there any more you want to say on expression?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think it's important that, you know, we are, we hold a lot of expression back sometimes. And I think that we do that for many reasons, but a couple of them that come up a lot are that we kind of do this thing where, well, what I'm going through is nothing next to my neighbor. My neighbor's going through, I mean, I'm just going through this and they're going through that. And look at, I'm just going through a divorce and she lost her husband. Or, there's this way where we minimize our experiences. And I just want to like put out there, we can do it the other way too. Like, oh my gosh, that's nothing. Do you know what I'm going through? We can do it both ways. But I think it's really important to remember that there is no comparison shopping when it comes to grief and loss. Whatever you are going through is important, and it is difficult, and it is, it's hard. It's hard. So I think it's important to know that everybody has their stuff. One isn't more in than the other. We are all just going through what we are going through, and the minute that we stop being there for ourselves or minimize our own experience is the minute that we can no longer be there for others in their experience. So it is really vital that we stay with ourselves long enough to acknowledge and express and let it all flow out. Let it out. because those are the first two steps of four. And I know we all know the great Elizabeth Kubler-Ross,
Mhm.
um, and she came up with her 5 stages of grief.
Yeah.
And they are all very important. They're all very, very important. And I just want to add that she came up with them. She developed hospice, created hospice. God bless her. And she created hospice and she was watching dying people. And that is how she came up with the stages of grief and loss, is through watching dying people go through it. So there's value in it, and I love it. The thing about it though is that it's not active.
Mm.
So if I'm in denial or I'm in anger, what do I do with that? I might be feeling those things, but what do I do with that? So I learned in my own training in grief and loss 4 steps. And the 4 steps are active, and um and they give you a roadmap of what you're going through, what to do, how to by the way, moving forward is not moving on. There's a subtlety to it. We're not like, you're not moving on from your mom. No, your mom is your mom. You're moving forward in your life,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
you're not moving on without her. Like she's you're moving forward and she's coming with you in a different way now.
Mhm.
So, but I do want to differentiate that, because a lot of people just, they don't want to move on, and that's okay. You're not. But the next day comes, and it comes whether we want it to or not. So, moving forward, these 4 steps really help in deep ways. So if we are acknowledging and then we are expressing, that goes on for quite a while, quite a while. Acknowledging and expressing, acknowledging and expressing. And those 2 steps are just vital. And you might want to express by speaking to your friends, and you might want to express by journaling, and you might want to express by making something, a poem, or whatever. You're expressing yourself.
Mm. Mm.
And then that leads to you start knowing what you want to do.
So I just want to take a pause here and summarize what Tiffany and I have been discussing so far, because there's a lot of wisdom here, and we had a really amazing conversation, beautiful conversation. And there are lots of things that we shared that you can actually start bringing into your life. We're going to continue the conversation in part two. In part two, Tiffany shares the next 2 steps in moving through grief in whatever way you're experiencing it right now. And because we did have such a long, beautiful conversation that was really so very rich, I wanted to split it into these 2 parts so that it's a lot more digestible for you. And then, if you like, you can actually start taking action on this first part before moving on to part two. Because I really want this to be something that helps you. I want this to be something that you don't just listen to and then forget about. I actually want you to move on from here with new, empowering tools that you can start using in your life. Before I move on with the summary, I just want to share a little about Tiffany's book, My Yellow Balloon. Now, My Yellow Balloon is a children's book. However, I know that many adults have found it really helpful as well. I have it at home. It's wonderful. I passed it on to my stepdaughter, who's 13, to read through it. She absolutely loved it. You can actually read all her 5-star ratings on Amazon, so feel free to look her up there. But I just want to read you a little bit about the description here. It all started at the carnival. That's where Joey makes a new friend, a bright yellow balloon. Joey and his beloved balloon do everything together until the balloon accidentally slips off Joey's wrist and flies far, far away. What will Joey do without his special friend? Tiffany Papageorge has crafted a poignant tale of love, loss, and letting go that will serve as a comforting guide to children who are navigating the complicated emotions of grief. Honest, unflinching, and ultimately reassuring, My Yellow Balloon will resonate with anyone who has endured the darkness of grief, while offering hope for brighter days ahead. Now, if you would love to receive a free signed copy by Tiffany of this book, she is holding a prize draw. And if you are listening before Tuesday, the 15th of April 2025, you have the opportunity to enter this prize draw. All you need to do is send her an email. Her address is in the show notes. Send her an email saying that you would like to enter the prize draw. Put the subject matter as soulful menopause. You will be entered into that prize draw, and then we will notify the winner after the 15th of April. So good luck with that. Okay, so let's just go through a quick summary of what Tiffany and I have discussed so far. First of all, grief affects us in so many ways. It's not just about someone dying. It can be a disappointment. And there are so many disappointments we face in life, as well as, having an idea of how we want our life to be and it just not turning out like that. There's changes, there's transitions, there's menopause, of course, which is what I talk about and I support women through. A changing body, especially, at this time of life, our bodies are changing, and that can involve some level of grief. Letting go of who we were before. It can be, perhaps you've got children who are flying the nest. There can be environmental grief. There can be aging. It can just be that one period of your life is over with. So you've moved from one way of being to another, and that can be something really small or it can be huge. So if you can ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Or you can ask yourself, what is that feeling that I'm feeling right now? That will really start to help you move through this process, because there's a lot going on under the surface that needs to be acknowledged. And acknowledgement is the first step in Tiffany's 4 steps of how to move through grief. Remember that our feelings are there to inform us. Emotion is energy in motion. So let it move through you in waves. Let it rise up and let it move out of you too. Just like that wave coming up, let it flow over you and then let it go. And grief can happen like that, can't it? That's exactly what's happening with me right now. I can be absolutely fine one moment and then snap, something happens and floods of tears are coming upon me, or a sense of grief or sadness or loss. And so you just let it wash over you like a wave. If you hold on to emotion, if you suppress it, if you deny it, anything like that, you could actually be making the situation worse for you. It could actually compound into something bigger. Now, there's that famous saying, what you resist persists. I love this saying. I find it so true. It's actually a phrase or a belief that was instigated by Carl Jung. It is so true. What you resist persists. And I think that's why the acknowledgement and then the second step of expression is so very important. So, what Tiffany and I recommend is doing some journaling. And you can literally ask yourself in your journal, write it down in your journal, what am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? That could be all you want to take away from this episode, because that in itself is so very powerful. It's a very powerful question to ask yourself. And of course, it's very empowering too. What am I feeling right now? So perhaps that's your action step for this week, to actually just write that down. And I loved what Tiffany shared, that when you are writing down your emotions in your journal, you're pouring them out, that you actually, when you close your journal, you thank your journal for holding all of that, so that you can let it go. And I just loved it when she said that she speaks to her journal and says, I know that you're holding it so that I don't need to. I know that you're holding it so that I don't need to. What a beautiful, simple, but massively empowering way to let go. I love that. Now remember that Tiffany shared a beautiful story of a little boy who came up to her after reading her book and said that he had learned that it's okay to be sad, but it's okay to be happy too. I thought that was just so beautiful. So remember that. It's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be happy when you're grieving. And also, Tiffany shared about not comparing your grief and struggles to anyone else. If you do, you're not honouring yourself or your own journey, and you're actually suppressing these things, and you're preventing yourself from having the chance to gain more wisdom along the way. You know, all this wisdom that can come from this, you're preventing that from happening. And therefore you're preventing your own growth. And then, of course, you can't fully show up for others as well. So don't compare your grief and struggles to anyone else. Honor yourself and honor your own journey. So we've said that step 1 is acknowledgement. Step 2 is expression. So we would encourage you to journal more, write some poetry, write a story, do anything maybe that's creative in a way that actually speaks to you. Just ask yourself, you know, how can I express how I'm feeling right now? And make sure, of course, that you're doing it in a positive way for yourself, so that you can express to yourself how you're feeling. So step 1, acknowledgement. Step 2, expression. In part 2, we're going to be addressing step 3, action, and step 4, reconnection. So please do stay tuned and listen to part 2 of this when you feel ready to do so. And also, you're going to hear at the end of part 2 that Tiffany and I decided that we are going to host an online grief retreat. Now, this is for whatever grief you are going through right now. Any change, any transition in your life. Of course, menopause will play a big part in it as well. Anything about your changing body, your aging, moving through a period of your life, knowing that one period of your life is over and another one is to begin. Maybe you're struggling with that transition time there. It can be anything. So we're going to really sort of have a beautiful, soulful time with like-minded women on an online retreat together. If you are interested in this, please let us know, send us an email, Details are in the show notes, and then we will get in touch with you when we've put it together. So that will be happening soon, I'm sure. I'm really looking forward to you joining us in part 2. To find out more about how you can live a soulful menopause, please visit soulfulmenopause.com. I'm really looking forward to being with you again soon. Bye for now.